As Africans, we are a global people. Intelligent black people have the potential to dominate any lands we enter, but that requires two things. First, the will to do so, and unity amongst ourselves. We are the most culturally dynamic people on the planet. People see us, they take notice, and no matter how much they may hate us, and they do, when we do something, they are compelled to watch it and imitate us anyway. You know what you call that? Undeniable influence. Our problem is that we allow outsiders into everything we have, and we have little confidence in what we create. And these outsiders don't join us for the sake of cooperating. They do it for the sake of co-opting us, and eventually to supplant us. We must understand that anything we create is ours. We are supposed to build barriers to keep others out of what is ours. If something is valuable to you, you protect it. Our enemies are worldwide. We must go worldwide as well. You want to stop the Asian onslaught into Africa? Then at some point we will have to have a presence in Asia of our own. Not a partnership with Asians, but a totally black-owned, black-run, black-oriented presence. A presence that puts black first. Take the Jews, for example. There's not a nation on earth where there's not a few of them. And this is why so few nations can ever be solidly anti-Semitic. Because there are Jewish businessmen, lobbyists, and media moguls who exert influence over what the people think and what they think about. We are at war, and there is no substitute for having boots on the ground. If we had a presence in South Asia, this Nadim clown would be no more bold against us than his cowardly cousins in the U.S. They only pulled this stunt because they know that there aren't any intelligent black people over there. This must change. That brings me to my final point. Part of what prompted me to make this video was because I coincidentally received a private message from one of my subscribers demanding that I make a video about the Lebanese takeover of West Africa. Since Nadim Salhani is Lebanese, I figured I could kill two birds with one stone. Now, I get a request to tackle this or that subject on the order of about once or twice a week. Back when I did videos about African history, I got such requests nearly every day, and quite frankly, it irritates me. Here's why. I'm not a disc jockey, and this isn't entertainment. I don't take requests. And to ask me for one violates the first commandment of Black First. Never ask anyone to do for you what you are fully capable of doing for yourself. Years ago, I did a video called The Truth About Robert Mugabe. I did it in response to a propaganda film that was put out by some white squatters in southern Africa. At the time, I'm proud to say, I was the first person in human history to challenge the white narrative about Robert Mugabe and Idi Amin. Fortunately, it didn't stay that way for long. I recently came across a documentary called Robert Mugabe, Villain or Hero. As I understand it, although the documentary only came out this year, it has been in the making for far longer than that. I may have made it out of the gate first, but what really matters is that black men as a group are reclaiming our history and our present. We are boldly telling the truth and not waiting for white people to give us permission to do so. And you've probably noticed that the last few years, the anti-Mugabe noisemakers have been a lot more quiet. They can read the tea leaves just like we can, and they know how significant a sea change this is. Robert Mugabe's land reclamation program has proceeded, and now that the whites see their best-laid efforts to overthrow him have failed, Morgan Chirangi is mysteriously going back into obscurity. And blacks are taking their land as God intended it. And this newly re-enfranchised black farmer class understands that black comes first. Of course, the white media isn't too thrilled with any of this. Or haven't you noticed that we haven't been seeing any more wall-to-wall reports of how Zimbabweans are starving and begging the whites to come back? Conditions in Zimbabwe are improving under black rule. So the land reclamation program is now synonymous with prosperity. So the whites can't mention it anymore. Now they're just sitting off to the sidelines griping that even if he was right, Mugabe is still just a mean old man. No matter what you think of Robert Mugabe, his plan is bearing fruit. The whites understand that, and now we see them singing a different tune as they hope to sweet-talk their way back into his good graces. Now this may come as a surprise to the Euro clowns who bought into their own propaganda, but for intelligent black people, it's no surprise at all. Mugabe's success also proves one more thing. Mugabe didn't bring in whites to partner with. Instead, he threw them out and relied on blacks to build his power base, which they are. Land is power, because land is the source of all resources. And don't expect to see any more white victim propaganda either. The sole purpose of manufacturing the myth of the poor, downtrodden white settler was to push a propaganda offensive against Mugabe that was supposed to pave the way to his ouster. Before they could steal his country, they had to convince the world that he didn't deserve to have it. But they failed. And now, with a solid and growing power base, we see the white media showing no concern for the handful of white squatters who got what they deserved. And don't think the rest of Africa can't see the example Mugabe has set. Although he's off to a modest start, Mugabe has proven to all of Africa that it can be done. The whites are forced to have to come to terms with true black power, because by owning the land, Mugabe has placed the power in black people's hands. And I, for one, get a nice laugh from seeing whites complain about being pushed off what they call their land. Now the whites are getting a taste of how they've treated everyone else for the last 500 years, and they will receive as much sympathy as they gave. What goes around comes around. That warm feeling you're getting about now, it's called justice. But you can only have it when you have power, and the price of power is that you must be willing and determined to wield it alone. Mugabe could never have gotten this far if he had wasted his time looking for white people to become allies with. He understood that the hardships he was facing at the time were the temporary effects of fighting white supremacy. They could make the road harder, but he knew that if he persevered, they simply couldn't stop him. And they knew it too. Overall, history will remember Mugabe more or less fondly for two reasons. The first, because men like myself will write his page in history, not white supremacists. And secondly, because Mugabe is winning. And as the Euro clowns ought to know by now, history is written by the winners. So you see, one black man telling the truth will get people's attention, but an army of black men telling the truth will change the world. The reason the racists are so emboldened is because not only do we refuse to speak up for ourselves, but they have a ready-made army of liars pumping out the lies 24/7 and backing each other to the hilt. They flood the zone, so to speak, with their propaganda, both online and off. White people don't tell each other to put out propaganda. They are only too eager to volunteer to do it themselves. The last time black America was in a fix like this was the turn of the 20th century. But back then you had black newspapers nationwide talking to their people. These publications laid the foundation for periodicals like Jet and Ebony before they sold out. We had armies of citizen journalists keeping our people informed. Today it's easier than ever to get the word out. Problem is, our people are lazier than ever. When someone comes to me telling me I need to do a video about this or that, that tells me this person isn't doing a thing for the cause other than watching videos. If you're not going to make videos of your own, the least you can do is repost the ones you do like. Most of the people who have seen my videos saw them on channels that weren't even mine, and I am grateful for that, because it lets me know that there are people out there willing to stick their necks out as much as I do. I don't care where you see my videos, just so long as you see them. This isn't about me getting views, it's about my viewpoint getting promoted. Before my Robert Mugabe video, nobody in black America was talking about Mugabe as a real African leader. But afterwards, They all were. They couldn't name any other genuine African patriot than him because I hadn't told them of any others, but they did know Mugabe's name, and they also knew what he had done. Before my blackface and white and yellow video, nobody had the sense to link white racism with Asian racism. Nobody took a holistic view of it. People acted as if the only place where there had ever been blackface was in the United States. But after my video, people began to see the connection. Today, people who would never admit to seeing my videos reference them all the time. But I also notice that the people who repost my videos also never request me to do any. Yes, I know there's an army of pot-smoking, voodoo-chasing, brain-dead clowns out there contaminating the community with their own idiotic brand of discussion. I've seen them, and I'm sickened by them. But it will take more than one or two intelligent black men, no matter how brilliant, to change that. So, it's time to put up or shut up. Yes, men like Black Authority, myself, and others are skilled speakers and expert commentators, far better than most. But to use that as your excuse for not covering subjects that matter to you is a cop-out. It's lazy and self-defeating. If you don't have the level of skill that you think you should, then dedicate yourself to sharpening your skills until you do. Most of you can recite what happened on your favorite reality TV show with the clarity and sharpness of a collegiate scholar, but when it comes time to talk about how you're being targeted for genocide, you're suddenly sloppy and weak as mud. That's because your focus is on being entertained by TV or YouTube videos. The Euro clowns see themselves as being at war against us. And they all see themselves as soldiers in that war. It is a war they want to fight. They don't hide behind talk about a lack of skill or any other excuse, and neither do the marijuana-brained goofballs in the consciousness movement. And the black front men working for white-owned websites spew total nonsense with complete confidence. Do you consider yourself to be better than those degenerates? Then prove it. Any man who refuses to speak up for himself or refuses to cultivate the skill necessary to express himself powerfully doesn't deserve to be heard either. The whites and Asians are using the media as the battlefield to prepare the minds of the world for black extermination. The Dunkin' Donuts ad would be insignificant, even laughable, were it the only example of blatant anti-black sentiment out there. Problem is, it's not the only one. It's one of thousands, seen daily. Somebody is trying to normalize the demonization of black people. They are on a holy war to shove the idea down our throats that the only acceptable black men are either biracial, gay, self-hating, or all of the above. But they want far more than that. Imagery and language that was clearly understood to be racist just 10 years ago is now being used regularly by the so-called news media and the richest corporations on the planet. Rather than report the news, the media now makes it a point to use a headline that is a leading question. The idea is clearly to get people in the habit of debating whether blatant racism is really racist at all, by declaring that racism is merely a point of view and not an objective fact. They don't do this with any other subject. We hear pathetic memes all the time now, like we're all a little bit racist, even though nobody would ever say we're all a little bit of a pedophile, or we're all a little bit of a tax cheat, or we're all a little bit of a terrorist. This type of moral relativism is meant to do only one thing: create a rhetorical shield for bigots to hide behind, so they can claim everyone is as bad as them. The world is being made into a very comfortable place for racism, particularly against black people, and this is not happening by accident. It is being made to happen by people who know exactly what they're doing. I understand myself to be at war, and I recognize the weapons being used against me, and I also realize when an attack has occurred. Now, if you consider yourself to be an intelligent black man, you must have one of two duties. Either speak up or spread the word.